So we're just about to be in session, everyone. If you are going to
Recording in progress.
Well, welcome to Qathet Regional District's Committee of the Whole for Wednesday, February the 25th, 2026. And I'd like to start by acknowledging that the meeting is taking place on the traditional territory, ancestral territory of Solomon Nation. Directors, you have an agenda in front of you. Could I have a motion to adopt? And the seconder for that motion, Director Brander, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? All right. The minutes of January the 28th. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing no hands, a motion to adopt, please, Director Elliott, Director Gisborne. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Directors, we have 3 registered delegations with us today. And the first one, I'd like to welcome Staff Sergeant Dyson from the RCMP. Welcome, and you have about 10 minutes.
Good afternoon, board. Hopefully it won't take me that long. I just have some information, some data from our third quarter of 25-26. So I'll jump right into that. Our total calls for service, we made a bit of a change after some requests last year, so hopefully this looks a little better for you. For the third quarter, there was 269 calls, which was down compared to the third quarter last year. Year to date, again, our calls are down a little teeny bit, about 10%, again, for the regional district area. Our check well-being calls are down a little bit for the quarter, but almost half actually for the quarter, and down 29% year to date over the same period. Mental health act calls are static, which is always a good thing if they're not going up. The care that they need. Unspecified assistance calls, again, these are calls that just don't fall neatly into any other specific category. Down about half for the third quarter compared to last year, and again, down about 38% for the year. Our missing persons calls for the quarter are down, but are up quite a bit for the year to date. I haven't looked at specifically what these are, although you know we have had in the last short little while several calls of missing youths that are trying to be missing, for lack of a better word. We've seen them fairly quickly. I don't know if that's the way to put that or not, but impaired driver calls are up just one for the quarter and static. As just an aside to this, one of our members, Constable Stewart, was just given the Alexa Award for last year. I just presented it to him a week ago, and he is a drug recognition expert who is specially trained to assist with finding drug impaired drivers, and he is the highest producing drug recognition expert in Canada. Mm-hmm. So it is very, very good to have him here, and he has a very good group of SFT trained members that are feeding him well, so we're able to get those people off the road. Overall persons crimes are down slightly compared to last year in both year over and for the quarter. Our assaults, again, down just a little teeny bit for the quarter, and fairly static year to date compared to last year. Sex offenses, we had 1 in the third quarter, and thankfully they're down almost half for the year to date. Our harassment files are up for the quarter. However, my understanding is that a good chunk of these are from the same person, so it's a specific incident. However, they are up year to date as well. I don't have any other data other than that one from this specific person. Uttering threats down by about half, and again down for the quarter as well. And it could be that some of the threats files are moved over to the harassment side. reduction. Property crime, again, in the regional district area are down significantly for the third quarter compared to last year, and year over almost 20%, which is great to see. We believe that the bulk of these, especially in the southern south of the city, are from one person being custody. It's fairly substantial increase. Our bike thefts, fairly static overall, no major changes there. Break and enters, again, fairly static, which is good. We don't want to see an increase in those. Sorry, so that was Q3, and that is for the year to date. Again, relatively static. Businesses are up just a little teeny bit. The bulk of these are one the same night. Two of these break and enters to businesses on the south side. Now we believe we know who that is, although at this point we have not been able to put a package together for court on that, unfortunately, but we're still working on those two files. Theft under, again, big decreases. We believe that there's a couple people that are currently spending time with the province that are the result of why this is down. Theft from vehicles, for the quarter, not too much. For the year, up significantly. Again, we believe that the bulk of those are one person who is now spending some time with the province. So hopefully we see a reduction going forward until he finds his way back to Sunshine Coast. Theft of vehicles, from third quarter up to, but up significantly for the year to date. And I don't have any specific data on what these are. We know that there was one theft, and we believe there was another one that was a directed thing. By that I mean they're working for a larger organization, and a specific vehicle was requested and obtained because of what it was. Whether that's larger, for sure, but we do know about two of those for sure. Our frauds, these are an ongoing problem. They're down for the quarter. For the year, our reported online frauds or crypto frauds are up, and that's a bit of a problem. Try to work with these people to prevent it from happening again, and there's lots and lots of data out there to try to help, but it's, you know, the people committing these types of offenses are getting more and more advanced in their techniques, and it's sometimes can be a little hard to keep up with them. Mischiefs are down almost 50% of the quarter from the year previous, and again close to that for the year over, which is great. Our drug offenses, and I'll discuss this a little more at the end, but up to 3 from 2. These would be primarily drug trafficking offenses, and for the year we're up 6 from 4. One of those I know was the offender again down south that is now spending time in custody, so hopefully it won't be creating issues for us for a little while. Great. I don't have any idea where I went there. There you go. Drug trafficking. Again, these are the drug offenses as well. Weapons offenses, again, a double from the year over, but not a huge number, but we're pretty lucky here. We don't have a large violent crime with weapons base here. So just a breakdown of the different regions and our all volumes. Obviously, we have a large increase in the rural and water areas. The numbers aren't huge, but it does make for a big increase when they double like that. And I don't have any specific data as to why that may be or not. We don't have that determined yet. I don't think there's nothing that's been brought to me as a major issue. We're looking, so luckily we're seeing of our numbers overall. Our 5-year total file counts for the regional district, just to show you sort of where we have been. We've been relatively static with a little bit of a drop for 2025. And for the detachment as a whole, these are our numbers again, remaining relatively static, a small decrease this year over last. A couple of the things that have come up, the drug decriminalization going away has been a bit of a hot topic locally, and I've been asked to sort of speak to that a little bit. So with the end of the drug decriminalization pilot project, all controlled substances are once again prohibited to possess, with a very few exceptions. Our members will be applying a holistic approach in enforcing the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, including the principles noted in Section 10 of the Act. Where problematic substance use should be treated primarily as a health and social issue. Interventions should be founded on evidence-based best practices and should aim to protect the health, dignity, and human rights of individuals. Criminal sanctions imposed in respect of the possession of drugs for personal use can increase the stigma associated with drug use and are not consistent with established public health evidence. An intervention should address the root cause of problematic substance use, including by encouraging measures such as education, treatment, aftercare, rehabilitation, and social reintegration. And judicial resources are more appropriately used in relation to offenses that pose a risk to public safety. So one of the questions that has been asked for is sort of what change does this make in the way that we do business? And really the only change is that this puts one other tool in our response to these drug things as to how we can address them. It doesn't change any of the others, and those are still a primary focus for us to try to get people the help that they need. And if appropriate, looking at the total circumstances, then we would look at charges are appropriate. As of today, there have been nothing forwarded for simple possession locally. I don't know provincially if there's been anything. It's a little early to know that, and I don't see a change in that, a substantive change in that in the near future. I think down the road we may start seeing a few more if we find people that are just not responding to some of the other help that they've been offered, but we don't expect to see a big change in that.
Sergeant, excuse me, I apologize for interrupting. Directors, we've reached 10 minutes. You good to go? Want to continue on? Thank you. Please carry on.
And we have one more page. As previously mentioned, our Project 529 garage has been deployed in Powell River and in the Qathet region, and we've seen an increase of bikes registered in the system. We did have a registration table at the Kings game here in Powell River on the 31st of January, and we are scheduled to do another table at the Cycling Festival in April to help get more events on the system. We're also working on shops to do that as well. And interestingly, with really no input from us, which is kind of interesting, we had a judge order a person that was going on probation that if they were in possession of a bicycle, that bicycle had to be registered with 529, or they had to have the receipt for the bike on their person. So that was great to see. We're working closely with our various partners to address several issues, the drug issue being one of them, and we're working to get increased collaboration as we work together to address those clients that we share in the region. And so far we've been really successful in that. It's been pretty productive. We have developed a business case that we're just putting the final dollar figures to, that we're going to be forwarding to the province through the Island District to request additional funds to continue with our enhanced long weekend coverage on Savory Island. As it looks right now, what we used to get for seasonal policing funds will not be provided again. So we've gone this route to try to say, look, there's a real need for this. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we will get the funds we're looking for, somewhere in the neighborhood of the funds we're looking for. One other thing, as far as Texada Island goes, we now have a part-time public service employee who's working there. So that office is now open on average 3 mornings a week to sort of provide service to Texada. Constable Freilich, who was one of the members on Texada, has departed, and he's gone to Gabriel Island. He was replaced by Constable Jansen, and who is on the island now. We had a very, very short turnover, so that was great. And he is working, and he and his spouse are absolutely ecstatic to be on Texada. So we're happy to have him, and I think we're gonna see some good things. We've changed their staffing a little bit, so they're working more together, and I'm gonna do a few more project-based things.
Thank you very much. I'm sure directors are going to have questions, so I'll ask for hands. Director Gisborne, Director Southcott, Director Elliott, and then I'll put myself on the list.
That'll me.
Okay, so Elliott, Lennox, and then me. Okay, go ahead, Director Gisborne.
Thank you. Now, my first question is these repeat offenses and their spending time with the provincial government. I presume that when they get released, and most likely come back, is their time with the province productive? Do you see a reduction, or do they go right back into the same habits?
For our more prolific clients, we typically don't see a response, as a matter or a change. As a matter of fact, we had some recently that were released, given very strict conditions. One of them we had in custody for breaching those conditions 3 hours after they got off the boat. The other one was 8 hours after they got off the boat. So, our system works well for most people and one-offs that, even if they commit a more serious offense. However, unfortunately, for our more prolific people, it doesn't seem to have much of a deterrent effect.
So the province should look at how they're handling it on their end.
I don't know what the right answer is.
Thank you. That's
Okay, thank you. Director Southpark.
Chair. Thanks for coming. With respect to the end of the decrim pilot, and specifically with respect to federal exemptions for the overdose prevention site, is your approach? How has your approach been affected by that?
Not really at all. They do have an exemption, and we have a good working relationship with Lyft, who runs that. It's been effective. We've had a couple, discussions about how that's going to be. I don't see any changes in the way that we operate there with.
Thanks, Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I have actually a couple of questions. Should I stick to just one, or can I ask a couple?
One and a follow-up, I think is okay. That's our usual modus operandi.
So then I will make my question about decriminalization. And talking, I've heard from you how it's gonna be, your approach is specifically to OPS sites where they're intended to be a confidential space and some of the users really want that maintained. Is the RCMP practice for coming into those spaces gonna be the same, or is there a change to that?
There will be no change to that. Our working with Lyft is to be the same. If there's a specific reason we're going in, as we would with any other facility, then we would work with them to go in. But there would be no change from the way it was prior to December 31st overall. Sorry, January 31st.
Okay, and so if people who are utilizing that system have noticed a change, do you want to hear about it?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And then I will save other questions to see if they get asked.
Okay, thanks, Director Elliott. Director Lennox.
Thank you, and always appreciate you coming here. It seems like we're here just recently, but time flies. I want to thank you also for your follow-up. I know you're working on a lot of hard things all the time, but on Savory, right? We hear about Savory a lot, but it's a unique place, and with the committee over there and your follow-up soon, talking about particular issues around emergency response and what our options are. Welcome to the history of Savory and our area. So thanks for that.
We coming up here. Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So thanks for that. Just two quick questions. And thanks for this work on the long weekend coverage. If we can do anything to support that from the board, I think you might get that. So anything we can. Two quick questions. How is the local detachment, or I guess yourself, prepared to handle the federal gun retrieval program that's underway? And there's some due dates soon. I received some emails, and to be quite honest, people are not happy, and we're not really willing to forfeit our firearms, many of us. And I know different jurisdictions, I know it's a tough question, but different jurisdictions are handling this and people are confused. So I don't know if you have any comments now, or putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no,
it's a real thing, right?
I mean, absolutely it is. And, I'm in the same boat, I believe, as you, or I have, some of my property that's in that same boat. So obviously we are federally mandated. Our services are contracted to the province, and we get our direction from the federal government and the province of BC. So that will be where our direction comes from for the most part. As far as where we go, I know some provinces have given their contract partners specific direction on that, one way or the other. And that'll be partly what our action depends on. I can tell you that if the request is for a large response from the local thing, I don't have the resources to do that. Nor do I have, if every firearm that is on the list locally, keeping in mind that we don't know about all of them, because there's several firearms, for those that may not know, that were non-restricted and are not sort of in any database anywhere, that were instantly overnight went from being non-restricted to prohibited. We don't know about those, so we don't really know. There's a bit of a guess about the number. If every one of those firearms gets turned in on the last day, we're gonna have.
Okay, thank you. I know it's a tough one, but, and just,
Excuse me one sec, we're at another 10 minutes, or everyone want to carry on? Okay.
thanks, this will be brief. I think one of the last times you visited us, we talked about the BC Prosecutor's Office and kind of you can do your work, but there's some roadblocks there with their resources and with the recent provincial budget. You know, it doesn't seem like many areas are gonna get any love there. Are we still in that same, like your detachment, are we able to move cases forward in a timely fashion? And
We actually are. We have a very, very good working relationship. The region is pretty well served with the Crown Council that we have working right now. And they do a great job for us. You know, every government agency is, you know, sort of affected by reductions in resourcing as far as money goes. So they're dealing with it as best they can.
okay, thank you. It's good to know.
Okay, thanks, Director Lennox. I'm up now on the speakers list. And if there's anyone who hasn't asked a question yet, you will have a chance to do so. And if you have another question to ask, you'll get an opportunity to do so. So I really appreciate the numbers, Staff Sergeant. I mean, it's clearly you're working really hard and well to bring down reductions in so many areas. And I really appreciate the attention to Texada. It's great to have a car in the parking lot now when you drive by, you know, and so that you know that there's somebody there. And yes, I've actually met the new constable's wife, and hope I don't meet the new constable too quickly, but I'm sure that will happen.
Absolutely.
So the issue I want to ask about is dangerous dogs, and I'm actually asking for clarification here because I read over the community charter, you know, section 49, and it talks about how, you know, you have the authority, but there's some words that, you know, are a bit puzzling to me. For example, it says that an animal control officer, which could be a peace officer, if they have reasonable grounds to believe there's likely to kill or injure. How do you define what's reasonable grounds? And I guess I'm asking because we had a letter at our last committee of the whole meeting from a Texada resident who complained about an aggressive dog, which actually picked up her little dog in its mouth, etc. And when talking to the RCMP about it, they were told without a dog bylaw, there's nothing they can do. So is it not reasonable if a aggressive dog has a little dog in its mouth and it's snarling and growling and threatening a person? Is that not reasonable grounds to step in?
Could be. So it would depend on the totality of the situation. Again, I don't know specifically the one you're referring to. I'm not well versed in that particular one. I do know that, as Mr. Radke will be able to tell you, one of the challenges that members coming into the regional district have is sort of understanding what bylaws apply, if there are any, and then what provincial legislation maybe. I've had to learn a lot of things with Mr. Radke's help since I got here as well. So, and this particular one was one that my understanding of the charter had to be updated. So each file has to be looked at on its own and what information we have. From the information you're telling me, that may be something that gets there to the point of being a dangerous dog. And I know that there was a recent discussion with a member there where we had to sort of change their bylaw opinion as to if there isn't one, to what other options do we have? The same thing applies to if we have burning issues. So, you know, if you hear, if the board or the regional district hears about a file that isn't quite on, normally I get sent an email and then we address it and have a try to look at that as a learning experience for a member. It can be really tough sometimes if you're used to working in a municipal detachment, and primarily municipal area, or as I have in other regional districts that have, you know, several more bylaws, you kind of start to rely on that as sort of the best option to deal with them. And it's just unfortunately a learning process when you get in, is to try to realize, you know, what may or may not exist here and how to apply those. So that may be the situation that we were looking at with that one.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate the cooperation that you and the conservation team have brought about, you know, to deal with illegal burning and that kind of thing. I'm just asking for your advice. What does a person do when they're confronted with a situation of a dangerous dog that might, say, injure their animal or be very threatening and they're very afraid? Who can that person call?
I mean, calling 911 is the right response. The members that are over there now have been updated on that and they're familiar with the legislation. We are not equipped to be able to seize a dog. So we would have to figure out a partner that we would have to use to do that, seize and hold a dog. I know that in past, when these types of situations have been raised, it's been information to Crown, and Crown makes the decision as to what they will or won't do and how they're going to go forward with that. So, you know, it's again working with those. I'm sure that, you know, I don't know if the current crop of Crown that we have here have dealt with these, so it would again probably be a learning experience for them as to getting deeper into this particular legislation.
Okay, thank you. That's really encouraging to hear that. And yeah, whatever attention you can provide to that. And it's all about ensuring public safety. So
Absolutely.
okay, thank you. Anyone who hasn't asked a question yet? Okay, seeing no additional hands, Director Elliott.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask some quick questions about sex offenses and harassment. For sex offenses, I'm wondering if there's multiple people who are you doing multiple offenders, and that's why I might have seen a dramatic change, or if that is not related to multiple offenders.
So I think if I understand your question, most of what we're seeing are single offender, single victim, and not one offender with multiple victims.
So we can't kind of attribute a big drop to some important action on a single person. Okay.
Well, sort of, let me just step back a little bit. I have to be careful because there's all kinds of investigations here. There are two persons in the area that have resulted in a couple of sexual based offenses. And while it's not sexual assaults, that has been a bit of a challenge for us. And one of them responds well to conditions, and that may be a result of some of the drop. The other one does not. And so we're dealing with those.
And then I'm curious about whether this is about adults, or is it multi-age and sometimes young people who are not quite adults yet?
Yeah, it's all ages.
Okay. And then for harassment, I'm assuming and I'm thinking that some of this is done online. So my question about harassment is sort of what's the threshold and how do we define harassment when it's happening online?
Again, each one has to be looked at its own. Typically, if it's one contact, that's not necessarily harassment. We're looking at sort of what criminal harassment entails. There has to be more than sort of one thing. So for example, if it's online, you know, a single comment is not, we wouldn't look at that as harassment, but if it was an ongoing or appeared to be several comments, while maybe from different accounts, if they appear to be from the same person, then that would be something that as.
Hey, Director Elliott.
Are there incidences where
Director Elliott, can you wrap up, please?
yeah, I can. It's a follow up to the harassment. Is there instances where people are receiving texts from some sort of weird spoof numbers and they just keep coming and you can't stop them?
That does happen, yeah, and those are the situations where it's likely from the same person but different accounts. Yeah, we definitely have those, and we're trying to deal with some of those.
And it's very hard to find out who they are, correct?
It depends on the nature and whether we are able to get a order to find out who the holder of that information is. Once you work through that, it becomes easier to get down there, but it has to reach a fairly substantial level before we can get that order.
And so that constitutes one harassment claim, though, not.
No,
a
each
bunch?
file would be, if they called in several times, right? If they may call us once and tell us about several events, that would be one. Or they may call us and say, hey, I've had this issue. Oh, now I've got another issue, and it may not be linked, so there could be 2 or 3 files on them in those cases.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Correlia, and I want to thank you, Staff Sergeant, for your presentation. I appreciate you coming on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, thank you. Our second delegation, Jessica from RIT, or I guess Community Resources Manager, Community Services.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Jessica Colasanto. I am the Community Resources Manager with LIV. I am here to provide, you've probably heard, maybe you saw in the paper, I just want to give an update on our funding model and a programming update. And just want to make clear, I'm not here asking for funding at this time. It's information only. So yeah, we were recently notified that a significant amount of our funding for our community support programs is not being extended. It was annualized funding. It was never intended to be permanent, but it was occurring year after year. And so we were relying on it, even though the funder said not to. And this is not anything new for especially the Community Resource Center and our family programs. Our drop-ins have endured multiple funding disruptions over the years. And we're once again in this position where we have to significantly restructure our programming in order to keep the doors open. We are now leaning more heavily into the community house model, which means we're amalgamating the Community Resource Center, our child and family programs, literacy outreach, legal and immigrant services all together, and sharing staff amongst those and the resources. And we're restructuring the scope of our support roles within the site to maintain our range of services provided to both families and adults. This involves having to reduce our staffing hours and our numbers to accommodate this change in funding. We unfortunately did have to lay off several staff. We're reducing our weekly drop-in hours in half, the biggest impact being on our adult drop-in services, just so that we can continue offering all of the services together. To advance the slide, hang on. Okay. With the exception of immigrant services, these community drop-in supports have never had actual sustainable funding. We've always had to rely on the generosity of community partners like the Town Center Mall gave us a space for free, the Powell River Public Library as well to donate from programming space for us. And as we've always had to do like a shifting of hours and staff numbers over the years to be able to continue providing services consistently while we navigate funding stagnancy and uncertainty. All of this led us towards this shift into a community house, we're calling it, instead of a neighborhood house. So the community house is in the Crossroad Village at 4871 Joyce and behind Quality Foods by their back patio. We leased this space in the fall of 2024, did some renovations to make sure it would adequately hold all the different programming. And we started moving in last spring. So it now houses family programs, which was running in the mall since 2004. And we had to relocate in late summer, early fall. Literacy outreach has been operating since 2005 and moved wherever we have had extra space. So these budgets don't actually allow a rent line, right? They're just programming. For a long time, literacy services were a part of our admin office. They were co-located with immigrant services. Most recently, they were in the Dr. Elsie Powell Literacy Center at the library. And now they've joined us with the community house. The CRC, Community Resource Center, founded in 2007 due to community identified need for free indoor space and general community navigation support. This was located on Joyce Ave until last spring when our long-term lease there was not continued once the building was sold. And immigrant services around this time last year, our IRCC, Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada funding did not get renewed for our area. And instead, North Island's organization was asked to look after the folks here for us. And that meant we lost that beautiful welcome center that was next door to River City Coffee. And so that has also joined us at the community house. We did form a lovely partnership with MISA, the North Island folks. They placed a staff member in our community house to cover IRCC clients. So she works alongside our staff to continue settlement services so that the clients don't really notice a disruption of services. There's some demographics on the screen. Community drop-ins historically do rely on multiple shifting funding services to improve quality of life, access to services, and most importantly, connection. We fill a service gap that doesn't really fit any provincial mandate. We created these community drop-ins over the years because we see how essential they are in homelessness prevention and poverty reduction. We support many people across many demographics. For example, first-time expectant parents, new parents, young families, seniors, newcomers to Canada, adults, people experiencing homelessness or at the risk of potential homelessness, including people who do not use substances, by the way. And we provide accessible services and resources. So we're serving people who are clinging on to stability. We serve more housed people than unhoused, but most are experiencing some form of food insecurity or other barriers to community. We also see a lot of folks who just want to come and offer support back. People we have helped in the past, perhaps. It's really nice to have a comfortable, welcoming, safe space to sit, have a coffee and a snack or a meal, either alone or with others. But this is a thing that we take for granted in society. It's a thing that we can do. So we like to have this service available for folks. All of our services, including our lunches and our food pantry, are all free of charge. And we're concerned that there seems to be a philosophical devaluing of these community-based health promotion and prevention programs, such as our community house. That we see the need, we see the wellness that it brings in the subtle day-to-day, having a space where people recognize you and can care for you. As a reminder, the determinants of health are the personal, social, economic, and environmental factors that determine individual and population and community health. And our programs address many of those, including employment and working conditions, education and literacy, childhood experiences, social supports and coping skills, access to health services, culturally appropriate supports, supporting healthy behaviors, and race and racism. So, in an attempt to summarize what the community house does, you could find a prenatal wellness or nutrition group, drop-in support for caregivers of young kids, mental health supports for families. And that means resources, activities, that sort of thing. Food supports, including free meals and take-home pantry items, grocery cards for expectant parents and young families and seniors. We have legal aid support, free tax clinic, free laundry, phone, computer, fax access, free haircuts, clothing, shoes, toiletries. We are visited by the community integration specialists from the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction a few times a week. We have public health visits, we have vaccine clinics. We can help with housing applications. We have peer support and advocacy groups for folks who use substances. We have literacy tutoring, immigrant services, English language supports and tutoring. We offer the citizenship test and preparation and support, and folks actually can do the citizenship test on site. And we have things like immigrant services book clubs, cooking clubs, field trips, health clubs, and more things that I'm not listing here. So it is a one-stop shop for community support. So as I said, we are keeping the doors open. We are prepared to continue delivering all of these services. It will just be at a more limited capacity than we've done in the last few years. And again, like combining multiple locations into one site, but we are doing our best to minimize the impact of the folks we support. The funding loss does require us to dramatically reduce our non-labor costs, which will negatively impact our food supports, we're afraid. So we are seeking donations of grocery cards to support our meals, to share out with families, and then to supplement our own food costs to stock the pantries. This is like one of our highest demands is food support, food insecurity.
Jessica, excuse me, just a minute. We've reached our 10 minutes. Everybody's good to go. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
A couple more paragraphs. We do have a steady stream of community members who want to show support, either through volunteering or dropping off donations, or just, as I said, coming in and saying hello and helping build community. These people make the center what it is. And we are always encouraging people to continue showing up in these very informal ways as we help maintain a sense of community in the space. We do see a lot of negative comments about our programs online. Staff and participants see those. But we actually see even more people coming in and stopping by and showing support and thanking us for the work and bringing donations, as I said. So having that positive presence every day in the space is really goes a long way to combat community divisiveness that you might feel if you were living in the online world. One ask we would have of you if you wanted to consider it would be perhaps sending a letter of support to the Ministry of Health or to the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. I could offer a template if you were interested in that. And just to reiterate, we have been here before. This is nothing new. Since these drop-ins opened, funding has been a challenge. So we know we're hoping the pendulum will eventually swing back, but here we are, and we do just intend to keep going best we can.
Jessica, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Directors, questions? Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering about the legal support. So we have the poverty law group. There's legal support. Is that a partnership between the two of you, or what is that?
It's two completely separate streams. So ours is we are a legal aid partner through Legal Services Society. So it's slightly, sometimes it overlaps and sometimes it's completely separate. And so, yeah, absolutely. If we are in a position where we're not quite sure, we'll phone up poverty law and vice versa. So it is it's a community partnership in that we are friendly partners, but they're not officially connected, no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director Lennox.
Thanks, and thanks for the update. You're right. This seems like it's kind of like the roller coaster continues, and I appreciate what you're saying is like there's never been a lot of sort of solid long term, so this is the ongoing battle. So appreciate that. Maybe just a couple of quick things what can volunteers do specifically, maybe any of the gaps that aren't being filled, and even if, you know, we have donations, do we just all show up to the center and drop? Like, I know that can be a problem. So how can you know, what are the answers to what volunteers might be able to do? Because this town or this whole region will step up for volunteering if they know what to do. And then how do we make donations? Cash is probably easier, I know, but what if you have other things?
Great question. On the Lyft website, there is actually a volunteer sign up area,
Okay.
so it details all the different ones. I think our biggest one right now is literacy tutors would be
Okay.
lovely. And yeah, volunteering in the space, even just coming in and having a cup of coffee, getting to know us, because advocacy is important in the community as well. So, and donations, you know what, we may grumble if we get 8 garbage bags filled with things in a single day.
Yeah.
But by the time we've sorted it all out, that's fine. And yes, sorting donations, by the way, is an excellent volunteer
Well, and
opportunity.
thank you. My follow-up was gonna be sort of about the letter of support, but I think other directors crafting things as we speak, so I'll leave it to them. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Lennox. I'm looking around for further hands. Director Southcott and Director Powell.
Oh, okay, I'll go first. So I'm only supposed to ask questions, so I'll put my suggestion to a question form and follow up on what Director Lennox just said. And thank you for your presentation. That was really informative. Would you be willing to provide us with a draft template letter of support, articulating the items that you think are useful for us that we might put on an agenda of an upcoming meeting that then we might consider adopting and adapting and sending?
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Director Paul. Great question. And yes, we're seeing that. Director Southcott.
Thank you. As long as I've been around, there's been struggles. Keeping CRC open, that was a big topic along the way. Are there any upsides to how all the programs are now kind of being jammed together? Seems to me when you bring people together, often there's what's the word? Synchronicities or synergies that can happen. Is there any of that going on?
Definitely for the folks we're supporting, especially immigrant families, one place instead of before they were maybe going to 3 or 4 different places. And yeah, and I think this is not new. I sit on a lot of provincial meetings with similar organizations. This is nothing new. I was just in a meeting with PCH where they're trying to figure out how do we flag for the funders that be like that these drop-in services, this is a wellness issue. This is a community wellness issue that really could finally use some dedicated funding. I'm not sure, but yeah, the synergies are definitely there. It's a beautiful little space. It's much smaller than we had before. I was going to do the square footage of what we were versus what we are now, but the kitchen is smaller than this opening, but cranks out amazing meals. And yeah, there's all sorts of benefits that have come out of this responding crisis.
One of the real problems in our culture is it's almost impossible to quantify the results of prevention. But has, and yet, you know, I believe in it since youth and having been programmed that way. Is there any way, like so much of what LIFT does is about prevention. Is there any way of actually, that you know, to quantify or to measure prevention? Like what isn't happening? I know to some degree it's happened in Europe.
I remember for a report we did in 2016, I believe, we were able to get a couple of local doctors to write letters of attestation, but there were a bunch of confidentiality hoops to jump through, and then we were only able to share those letters with honors. The meeting I was in this morning was asking VCH how they could support in putting out that message of how we value these programs. And also I know the Provincial Family Resource Program is looking into the same exact thing. Is there a different way we could be gathering statistics that actually show what we are preventing? Excellent question. People are on it. I don't have a specific answer.
So glad to hear that. Thank you.
I think impact stories are always valuable. So, yes.
Thank you. I'm seeing no further hands. So I just want to say thank you for your presentation, but also for the really invaluable work that you do in the community. And it is appreciated and it is known. And yeah, we're gonna hope for better days ahead. I'll look forward to hearing or seeing your correspondence, and we'll take that forward.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Third delegation is Cathy Brown from the Texada Island Nonprofit Seniors Housing Society, otherwise known as TINSHS.
TINSHS is easier, it's the other's a mouthful.
Cathy is no stranger to this table, so I welcome you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair, board members and staff. I'm sure I've been here before. My name's Cathy Brown. I'm president of TINSHS on Texada Island. Joining us via Zoom is Leslie Goreski, my vice president, and we appreciate the opportunity to present our request to you today. Just as a briefing, refined summary has been sent around, addressed to the chair. Thank you. We're going to the agendas. Next correspondence. Wayne will be saying to stay and answer questions if you have anything further. Formal request. We're here to respectfully request that the Qathet Regional District Board provide a written motion of support and ask as the primary applicant for our 2026 age-friendly community Stream 1 grant proposal. As per the grant requirements, we require a municipal body to apply, be the lead applicant, and we believe the project aligns with the district's goal for aging population. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied. Our society has been diligent in moving this process forward. We've successfully completed a comprehensive suite of site investigations, including agrological, hydrological, environmental, fire protection, and preliminary layout studies. So we're not starting from scratch. We're building on a solid foundation of professional due diligence. The age-friendly communities funding will allow us to transform these technical studies into an accessible home for our seniors, specifically it will fund accessibility design, which is redefining our 20-unit site plan for maximum mobility and age-friendly home. Infrastructure analysis, assessing our on-site trail networks and comparing the safety cost benefits of various materials for roads and paths. And connected living, planning for essential services like high-speed internet and social community spaces. Ultimately, these funds ensure we're not just building housing. We're planning for a community that promotes healthy activity, social interaction, and safety for our future residents. We're pleased to share that Vancouver Coastal Health has confirmed their support for this initiative, and we expect to have a written letter of support arrive in time for the application due date. Sorry. I asked for, okay, now the due date is the 12th. That was the information I was waiting for. March 12th is the due date for this application to go into the AFC. We also recognize that the board and staff, your time is very valuable. We will provide all the necessary documentation and a final draft for staff to review prior to submission date, ensuring that the impact on QRD administrative hours is kept to an absolute minimum. We believe that this is a win-win for the district and for the seniors on Texada Island. We thank you for your time and are very happy to answer any questions that we can.
Thank you very much, Cathy. And it's great to hear an update and how many amazing things that you've gotten done already. Questions? Elliot.
Well, it's probably an obvious question, but it's actually for staff and support of your delegation. Where do we need to get this to meet the deadline of March 12th, and still submit support for this grant application?
I can perhaps address that in that there is an item of correspondence from which a motion will be derived to move forward to staff support, write them their letter of support, and plus do the grant application later today. And if we so choose, I'm not sure how exactly, if we meet again as a board, I don't know that we do, we probably do meet in the first beginning of March, but we'll make sure that it gets done in time for your March 15th deadline.
March 12th.
12.
The deadline is the 12th, not 15th.
12th.
Yeah.
When is the next board meeting?
This afternoon. Corporate officers.
Corporate officer.
Sorry, thank you. I was muted. I just would like to ask a quick question about which stream that we should be, if a motion were entertained, should we make it broader and support applications to the BC Healthy Communities grants, or is there a specific stream that we should be applying for?
We are currently applying for the Stream 1, and I should have the response to that in a second. Stream 1 is for planning and capacity building. It provides up to $25,000 specifically to help communities and nonprofits working with local governments to create or refine policy plans and preliminary designs that make the community more accessible for seniors. There's another stream as well as Plan H. But Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong, at this point, we are not pursuing those particular ones this year. Is that correct?
Plan H, I think, actually the application deadline is later. But we're not going to be pursuing Stream 2 of the HFC at this time. And it's due also, so it wouldn't be this year.
No, Rusty.
Just one follow-up question, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. I was just wondering which board meeting, if we were able to pass a motion from this committee, could it be advanced to today's board meeting, or is there another in time?
I could check the calendar.
The next board meeting after today is the 18th of March.
We're not meeting to the 18th?
Yeah, I think it would be best if you to elevate it today, if that was possible, if that is what the committee is going to consider.
Okay. That's why I'm checking, just to make sure we don't miss that opportunity. Thank you.
If I may ask just one more question. I just wanted to ensure that we're doing the wording correctly. So Stream 1 and Plan H is the goal this year? No, just Stream 1?
Just Stream 1.
On the letter to the chair that was refined, there's a quote for the motion for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does that, CEO?
Through the chair, and I just have one question for clarification. What is the expectation of regional district staff?
We have the application pretty much filled in to what we believe is the satisfaction of the funding acceptors. We're in the process of collecting the final documents and letters of support from different areas. We will then present that to the staff with much lead time before it's actually due on the 12th. The staff is just to review to make sure we're not in conflict with anything that the QRD policies are. It has to be submitted as a primary source from the regional district, as we're not allowed to apply on our behalf. Then it gets submitted, and then Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong, as a primary, the AFC would give funds to the regional district, which dispersed them to us.
Yeah, that's my understanding, and I'm thinking that I don't think that the regional district staff needs to be putting in any information into the application. I think that we can do that. We're naming them as the applicant because only we can't do that. This grant is not, it's only open to municipalities and regional districts and Indigenous entities. So we're trying to minimize the work that the staff will be doing. And I'm pretty sure that we can input everything into the application. So we've named ourselves as the correspondence, that so any correspondence between AFC will come to us, but that the monies will come to the QRD.
Through the chair, just one follow-up question. Is this an electronic application or is this a paper application?
Leslie, is it electronic?
We'll do it online, if that's what you, is that your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? I'm not seeing any hands. So Leslie and Cathy, thank you very much. This is going to come up under correspondence and hopefully we'll come up with a motion that will that you have. I hear broad support for what it is you're doing. So for your time. Director Elliott, you had something very quick?
I do. I have a follow-up question because I misunderstood something before and now understand it. It indicates in the submission that you've written that you would submit the completed application to the board after our. No? Okay. Thank you. I had an answer from my CEO. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Cathy.
Thank you very much for your time.
And Leslie, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Now, are there any unregistered delegations?
I've not heard of any, Chair.
Not that we are aware of, so that is good news. So the next item on our agenda is correspondence. There's two items here, item 6.1 and 6.2, and I'm going to pull 6.2. Is there anything else that anyone would like to pull? Okay, Director Southcott.
6.1, I just have a question with regard to that.
Okay, so 6.2 becomes the new 7.1 and 6.1 becomes the new 7.2. Everybody got that? Okay. All right, so if we move on to 7.1, I'm going to ask our corporate officer, for the wording that that she would propose to address TINSHS' request. And if you wouldn't mind to read that. Okay.
So moved. Seconded.
Sorry, I was probably muted. So this can be adjusted. So this states that the committee recommends to the board that the board authorize a partnership with Texada Island Nonprofit Senior Housing Society to make application to the BC Healthy Communities 2026 Age-Friendly Communities AFC Stream 1 grant for their senior housing initiative on Texada Island, and that the committee recommend to the board that the board affirm its support for the project, and that the submission of the application be subject to the Texada Island Nonprofit Senior Housing Society entering into an agreement with the Qathet Regional District under regional district terms for administration of the grant, and that the commitment by Texada Island Nonprofit Senior Housing Society to cover any ineligible costs and cost overruns. And the second part of this motion is that the motion be elevated to today's meeting.
Okay, thank you. And Director Gizmo, did you move that? Yep. And Director Lennox, you seconded.
Quick, Chair.
Okay, discussion on the motion. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Officer, I think that takes us to where no, I would like to be. Discussion. I am almost seeing no hands. Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the delegation and thank you for the motion. The third part of that motion took care of what I was actually trying to ask about, that I got an answer from my CEO without any words. And so I'm pleased to see that we can approve this motion, and it does take care of the administrative concerns I kind of had going on in the back of my mind. So thank you.
Thank you for asking. Anything further? All I want to say is that I really appreciate the support of members of this board, because we don't have any dedicated seniors. You know, low cost housing, Texada, so this will be a big step for us when it happens. I'm not saying if, I'm saying when. That's all I have to say. Seeing no further hands, all in favor?
Sorry,
Yeah, corporate officer?
I was just wondering if you guys moved that as a block 1 and 2, or was it separate?
Yeah, it's blocked.
Thank you, Corporal.
Yeah.
Keeping us honest.
That's everyone's understanding.
Yeah.
And that's supported unanimously. So thank you very much, everyone. Now we can move on to reports.
7.2.
7.2, I'm sorry, right, which is the former 6.1. Director Southcott.
Oh, great. As I remember, and I just wanted to confirm my memory, some time ago, a number of months ago, this came up, and it was, I believe it was referred to staff or work. I wondered if that's true, if either staff or, I was going to research it and just sort of write to Lisa, but I thought it would be more important or more appropriate for staff possibly to just let her know it's in the work.
Corporate officer, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, through the chair. I have been in communication and just provided an update to date, and I believe that there'll be more information coming forward in the next little while, about this MRGT funds.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing no further hands. So now we can move on to reports. 8.1, the fourth quarter 2025 strategic plan progress report. There is a motion in our package. Is there a mover for this recommendation? I'm not seeing any hand. Director Brander. Discussion. Well, I'm going to put myself on the list for discussion with just a comment to say that I support the recommendation, but I think for the next time we get one of these reports, it needs a little bit of work. Like there's still, you know, language in there about things that are on the schedules we put on the work plan in 2024 and things like that. It needs a little bit of editing. So without any major changes. Corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair. As that is the final quarter, what happens now is that we'll go through and remove any items that have been completed, and we'll start fresh. So you'll see a lot less goals on it at the first quarter.
Thank you very much. Anything else, Director Lennox?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for raising that, because I was sort of, I appreciate these reports, but then if you look at the details and the dates, some of them are like from last year or even earlier. So not to get into the weeds on what about this, what about, it's like, it's just good to know that we'll have a reconciliation, I guess, and see what's everything that's 100% will be off the list, so it'll help. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank
you, Chair. Solid Waste Management Planning Monitor Advisory Committee. I think I got that right. Or the SWMP-MAC terms of reference, and I believe that's page 74 of 124. I see progress, contact administrative environment and parks in November, waiting for response. Because for those that are not up to speed, we don't have enough members on our swamp MAC to actually have quorum, so we're trying to update the terms of reference, and we have to get approval from the provincial government. I'm just wondering, have we heard anything from the province, or when we go down to ABICC, should some of us start poking the bear a little bit?
Mr. Cohen, welcome.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, I did receive a response from the province, and they confirmed that we need to work through an amendment to adjust the terms of reference. So that is in progress.
Okay, Thank you very much. So I won't go poking the bear then.
Oh, sure.
I'll poke the bear for something else.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. Anything further? Director Fall?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say I was also glad to hear those comments from our corporate officer that you know that this is to understand better how this all works, because I also just wanted to point out with a big thumbs up that there's a lot of 100% on that in that report, and I think you know just for our staff and everyone involved in getting these things moving forward, advancing to completion, that's fantastic. It's nice to really see that. It'll be good, you know, to get you know the start of Q1, seeing that next time. But I really think that you know, when you look through it, a lot has been achieved this year, and there's, you know, still the plate's still pretty full with a lot of the ones that aren't finished. But I think it's really great to see us getting things, you know, ticked off and completed. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Elliott.
Just regarding that same item, I've noticed it says 100%, and it seems like we're kind of in the middle of something. And so I'm just curious about what the goal was just to initiate this process, or was it to finish this process, and how do we, like, how is that determined whether it's complete or not?
I don't see you.
You're the chair, which one are you specifically referring to?
It's Solid Waste Management Monitoring Advisory Committee.
Clarification.
Mr. Coleman?
I'm sorry, through the chair, I was having a minor technical difficulty. Could you repeat the question, please?
In our report that we received that's on our agenda, this item, which is called Solid Waste Management Plan Monitoring Advisory Committee, we're investigating and reporting back to the board about the barriers, and we've determined that we can't get enough people, and so now we're trying to change the terms of reference, but none of that is complete. But the target says it's 100% complete, and I'm just curious as to that, because it was to initiate the process or finish the process. We seem to be in the middle of something, so that's what I was wondering about, is how we determine that's 100% complete.
Okay, we'll get a word from our corporate officer, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. So the first direction is 100% complete, but there's another direction that followed that one that is on, that you'll see, I think is at just 10%. So it is on page 74 or of that, and that one is just at 10% now. So.
Oh, okay, so you busted out the follow-up in both everyone. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, anything further? So I'm seeing no further hands. So the motion to accept this is coming up next. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. Thank you. 8.2, the 2026 elections appointment of officers.
Move part one.
Okay, Director Gisborne, Director Lennox, any discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Move number two. Seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded. Number two, is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, Director Lennox.
Thank you. Just a quick question for staff, because these reports are always educational, the financial impact of our elections. I don't want to make assumptions, so it's good to see we budget 80,000, looks like. Just correct my inaccuracies. And then we recover a certain amount. But it varies, and so my assumption here is number of candidates who submit nominations increase the cost to our elections. Is that really what we're saying? So if nobody runs, costs are sort of at a minimal level, and then as more people run and there's more work to do, then the costs increase.
Thank you through the chair. The costs are almost, the costs are going to be the similar regardless of who runs, because we have to have polling stations in each location. Even if Lesquiti Island was a great example, we had a director that was had his seat. There was nobody running against him, but we still had to run School District 69 and Islands Trust election as well. So the costs were still the same over there, but we recovered all of that cost for Lesquiti Island from our partners.
Thanks, Dr. Lennox. Anything further? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Under new business, 9.1. Director Gifford.
I'll move it unless some folks have some questions.
I'll second it.
Motion.
Okay, the motion is on the table. Director Gisborne.
Yeah, we had a delegation at our last committee of the whole in relation to the proposed, transfer of the Sultry Bay dock. Personally, I think it should stay with the federal government, but looking at the history, there have been cases, I think, on Texada and Savory Island where when push comes to shove, the federal government can push pretty hard. The challenge I think that we will run into with Savory Island, or not Savory, maybe with Sultry Bay is, if we do take on, say, the Sultry Bay dock, what's the service area? So, for example, the dock on Texada Island's the service area. We've heard that primarily the Sultry Bay dock actually services the people on Nelson, which is actually part of the Sunshine Coast Regional District. So I think, it might be good to have a meeting with our neighbors and kind of ask them, hey, how's your dock management plan down there? Would you be willing to look at maybe some cross boundary? Like, this is new territory, and I think the easiest way or the first way is to say, hey, let's have a chat. Maybe it's a virtual meeting and not all too onerous, but then that way they can say, understand our concerns, we can understand where they're coming from, and then we can, each individually direct our staff to take next steps, or we can say, we're going to have a unified approach and say, feds keep the docks.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. That's why you're putting it on the table. I have Director Lennox and Director Elliott.
I'm kind of in favor of this. I just worry that we haven't had an adequate look at what it means, but docks in general, and the reason they were federal in the past is because in general they support broad areas and ocean going traffic, which is not necessarily part of any particular region. Having them there, of course, is an asset to the region they're in, just because it adds that amount of extra access to the water. So I'm in favor in general. I don't know. It's a little bit like saying the Lund dock is part of the Lund area's asset, and there's a harbor authority there for that. But everybody knows a lot of people use that, primarily Savory, right? So I don't know how that's been done in other areas, but I'm sure that our staff will let us know.
Okay, thank you, Director Elliott. I've got Director Lennox and then Director Brander and Director Fall. Did you have your hand up there?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Add me to the list.
Okay, thank you. Director Lennox?
Thanks, Chair. I'm in support of this. Why? Because we just need to talk to each other regionally with the SWIA that's involved, also with Seychelles Nation, and there's a lot of interconnectedness. So this is, I think, a smart move to start a discussion. I personally believe that most folks would say that a federal asset should remain a federal asset, and we should be investing in those and maintaining those. And just as of Saturday, I met with our MP, and this was one of the items on the list that I wanted to make sure that he understood. And he actually needed a little education on that, because divestiture of these smaller port facilities is not necessarily well known, and this mysterious list of potential facilities that are on the list aren't on the list. But so I just kind of reiterate that they should remain federal assets. There's a lot of values we could go on and on about that, but we should also understand what it means if that was to fall onto the divestment list and we had to deal with that. So earlier the better.
Thanks, Director Lennox. Director Brander.
Thanks, Chair. This is an interesting issue down there. Right now, we don't know of any federal plans to actually divest of this dock, and we have a resolution that we're bringing up at the ABICC that impacts us directly. I think scheduling a meeting with the Sunshine Coast Regional District is kind of getting too far ahead. Director Elliott mentioned it. We don't know any more about it than the delegation who came to inform us about it. I think maybe suggesting to the delegate that they contact the Sunshine Coast Regional District to let them be made aware of the situation, or send the information that he provided to us down to them, so they know the issue is. But I just think we're jumping the gun here when we really don't have much information about it. Director Gisborne mentioned the service area, like how would we pay for it? Who would pay for it? You know, if it's mainly servicing the islands that are part of the lower Sunshine Coast, then why would our taxpayers be picking up the bill for it? Yeah, I just think we're getting ahead of ourselves in this one right now.
Okay.
Not saying that it's not a good option for the future, but I think we're just, it's too soon.
Thanks, Director Brandon. Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not many people on Lasqueti use Saltery Bay Dock, so I don't want to tip any balances here. I do think we want to go cautiously. I think the idea that the federal government wants to divest it, well, they have an ongoing list. They for sure want to divest it, but they aren't actively divesting it. And that's one of the things that one of the Squeedy residents determined with the Squeedy Bay dock, because there was a lot of concern that the Squeedy Bay dock may be divested. And with these small craft harbor docks, small craft harbors can dismantle docks, that they find that they want to, it's their ultimate, if there's no one receiving it, they can, unless it's a remote port, like the False Bay dock on Lasqueti, small craft harbor docks can be removed. So there is a risk. On the other hand, it's not active. I think they have an ongoing wish, but what we learned, or what we got, resident got a response, was that there's no, active process for Squeedy Bay. Now, I don't know with Saltery Bay. We heard from the delegation. I don't necessarily think a meeting with Sunshine Coast Regional District's a bad idea, but I do think, maybe there's other information that could be useful in the meantime. It would be, if a meeting goes forward, it would be useful to have it after AVICC, so that, that motion could be considered. They can have a discussion on it. They can think about it. So I think that would be one thing. And the other would be, maybe in conjunction with this, reaching out to the delegate and asking them to, go and approach Sunshine Coast Regional District themselves. I think that's a good idea because of the overlapping jurisdiction. I think we're all in agreement around the table that, the federal government, the first approach, and that's been always my approach, is the best approach is the federal government keeps it. Whether they, ideally back off from their, sort of threats of divestment. On the other hand, even if they maintain those, just keep it. But finding out information is not necessarily a bad idea. The Sunshine Coast Regional, SCRD, because of the divestment of the wharf on Gambier Island, New Brighton, they just completed a feasibility study in 2025 that came out in June, and so they are and they have actually a number of docks in one of their services or multiple services. So they're like us, we have a couple as well. So they're not unaware of this. It's not entirely new concept to them. They've taken them on over years as we have. So I think, I think discussing with them would be not a bad thing. I'm not 100% sure whether meeting with the board's the right way, or having the staff meet or getting more information first. I'm not really sure, but I think, getting it on the books and planning for it. And if our staff in particular feel that other information, maybe I'll turn this into a question through the chair if I want, for our staff, for a corporate officer, or maybe it's more for our CAO. If we went forward with this, is there other information that would be prudent from our organization to seek first through requests to our staff for information before we would meet, between two regional district boards?
Through the chair, the board may want to know, I mean, the question's already been kind of raised around the table, is where would that service boundary be? The board may want to know what craft actually make up a majority of the dock being used. Are they local or are they not? The LGA does allow for the board to have a service in another jurisdiction. So that could be something that could be posed to the Sunshine Coast Regional District. So there's some things in the LGA that might be of interest to the board. There might even be a, let's call it a temperature check of what's going on down in the SCRD right now. You mentioned Gambier Island, and what their philosophy is following that and whether or not there might be an appetite to pursue further things. So, yeah, there's probably some background information you want to get together with, because I don't think you want to go to a gunfight carrying a knife.
And if I might, Chair, and you know, I don't know whether it would be added onto this or not. I don't want to mess up the process, but I think I think it would be really prudent for us to, you know, even if we go forward with this, that we have another motion of some kind that requests some of this information from staff that we would receive before arranging a meeting with the Sunshine Coast Regional Districts. Otherwise, you know, if I was to be at such a meeting, I wouldn't really, you know, be like, hey, you know, there's this thing, as opposed to information from our staff that outlines, summarizes what we heard from the delegation, and then adds on to to anything. So I mean, I guess I'm putting it out there. I don't know if, you know, if others agree, but I would really support that in conjunction, either as an amendment to this or as a follow-up motion.
Thank you, Director Paul. I see a couple of hands. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken yet on this issue? Seeing nobody. All right, go ahead, Director Elliott, and then Director Southcott.
So this conversation has made me think that we kind of might have worded this in a way that appears that we are favoring the divestation rather than favoring the non-divestation of this dock. And so I'm wondering if we should be putting an amendment forward, and staff can let me know if I'm in scope or out of scope. But if we were to want to meet with the Sunshine Coast Regional District to discuss united support related to the proposed federal divestment of the Sultry Bay dock, and remove transfer foreshore and dock lease as requested by the Sultry Bay Harbor Authority, we then are just meeting about getting a united concept about the whole issue rather than weighing in on that transfer. Because my suspicion is we are all much happier with it staying with the federal government. Perhaps we might end up through a meeting like that to have a united sort of strategy for advocating for that, rather than jumping the gun and say supporting transfer, which the federal government would probably love to hear. And so I'm worried that this motion favors a particular action that none of us really want to see
as yet.
As yet.
Okay, thanks, Director Elliott. Director Southcott.
Chair, not to repeat, but in my thinking, I agree with a lot of the points that have been made, and feel if I was to attend a meeting, I would basically be there to learn, like information gathering. So I think maybe that it would be a good thing to do before actually convening a meeting. I don't think we know whether it's even on the radar of the Sunshine Coast Regional District at this point. That would be interesting to know to start with, but then I'm sure there could be some conversation useful preceding an actual meeting before we even, you know, to just know the lay of the land as far as they're concerned before we do anything.
Yeah.
How I stand on this right now. Thank you.
Could you get an answer maybe about the scope of if the amendment I proposed would be in scope or not in scope?
Okay, maybe we could get corporate officer to provide some guidance. Whether the amendment that Director Elliott is talking about is out of the scope of the original motion. I got that question right.
You're muted.
You're muted, Michelle.
I'm so out of practice. Sorry, through the chair. I was just trying to find because this says as requested from the Sultry Bay Harbor Authority, and I was just trying to find their original request to see if meeting to discover or to have an advocacy position would be in scope with that request. Sorry, so I was in the process of doing some research there. If you could give me a moment.
Sure, thank you. Maybe we'll just hold that thought, and I have Director Southcott next, then Director Gisborne.
You got me.
You're finished? Okay, Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the correspondence from the Sultry Bay Harbor Authority, and maybe there's some confusion in the motion. It says, good afternoon, the DFO intends to divest itself of 49 of the 101 federal docks on the BC coast. Sultry Bay is one of them, as we don't have enough commercial fishing vessels using the dock. The DFO wants to transfer the foreshore and dock leases to another organization. Priority given in order is federal government, province of BC, regional district, Indigenous communities, local harbor authority. So I think that's where we get some of this kind of confusion when they're talking about transferring from DFO to the federal government stays federal, but it's still a transfer between the DFO and the federal government. Myself, that's the approach I would love us to take. But also keep in mind, because there's a bunch of residents that are on the Sunshine Coast, this is where I think if we meet with the lower coast and their attitude is, we don't want it either, we got enough problems with docks, then we can take a united front and tell the federal government, we would love it if you would take on the transfer from the DFO to the federal government and keep it in your wheelhouse. The reason why I think meeting with them is important is there's something I remember as a kid hearing about dock divestments. It was the saying, run it up the flagpole to see who salutes. And the federal government would constantly run these things up the flagpole to go, hey, look, here's this great dock. You guys should take it over. And every now and then an organization says, that sounds wonderful. And then they take it on and they go, wow, that's really expensive. And the federal government goes, haha, we tricked you. So this is where I think meeting with the lower coast is a good idea. I love the suggestion of doing it after AVICC. I think the motion as it stands right now doesn't actually have any time constraints or time restrictions. It just says, yeah, we want to meet with you guys and folks down there at some point in the future. I do like a proposal of a subsequent motion to say, hey, let's get some more information. That being said, I don't necessarily want to burden our staff with a lot of paperwork if at the end of the day, our position and the lower coast position is, hey, let's send a united front to the federal government saying, please keep the dock. We don't want it. It's too complicated for us to kind of work between cross boundaries, because as the CIO has said, there is that possibility, but to create a service in Qathet and then have a cross service boundary with Sunshine Coast, that sounds like a lot of work and a lot of headache. I think the first step is to talk to each other. Maybe their attitude is, oh, we would love a dock, but I don't want to speak for them. My position right now is I don't want the dock, but I think we should have a united front to, keep it with the federal. As I always recall, anything that gets into the ocean, federal jurisdiction, docks in the ocean, it should stay federal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. And I guess I'm putting myself on the speakers list. I'm in favor of perhaps having a staff report come back to us about the implications. One factor that is particularly important, which I think Director Brander raised, was whether or not a majority of the people using that dock do in fact live in the Sunshine Coast Regional District, or do they live, with us? So we need that kind of information before we even consider a motion to meet with the regional district, the Sunshine Coast Regional District. So, I would like to have more information first and then make a decision, afterwards. Clearly, I remember, and some of you might have been around this table for a while, when residents of Hardy Island came to us and said, please, can we join your regional district? We would like to leave the Sunshine Coast Regional District and be part of you guys. And we thanked them for their presentation, and that was kind of, we didn't hear any more from them or about that. But maybe it will one day come to the fact that Hardy Island belongs with us. So I don't know what the answers are, but I think getting information is a good way to start. And so I guess the way it's written, I'm not willing to support it yet, though I think I possibly would down the road if we had the information for Director Brander.
I think we may, I think an easy way out that everybody could potentially get behind is that we just send a letter to the Sunshine Coast Regional District asking if they'd want to, or an email asking if they want to take part in joint advocacy. They have a joint letter sent to the federal government, to the DFO, and say, look, we're not interested in this, please keep it. But I think also that we'll probably have to inform the SCRD just as what is going on. A few weeks ago, I was on the fair and I ran into one of the directors, and he had no idea about the whole issue. So even if we request this letter, we'll probably also have to inform them of the issue, that it even exists. So I think, again, setting up a meeting is jumping the gun. I think we can have it handled easily with just a letter.
Okay, thank you, and that seems like a reasonable, approach with a minimum of work for staff. So, the question is, the motion on the table, is recommending that we.
Corporate officer.
Yep, corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to make assumptions about how the committee is feeling, but I kind of have heard that maybe you might not want to proceed with this just yet, or you might want to change the wording to it. So you could withdraw it, and then that would always allow it to be reintroduced again. Or if you postpone it, then there's a procedural gymnastics that have to be done to consider other options. So I just wanted to let you guys know where we're at with that procedurally.
Thank you. Director Guzman, what is your pleasure with this motion?
Well, I think it's up to the assembly though, isn't it? I think it's up to the assembly.
Well, I'm just asking, as a mover of this motion, did you want to withdraw at this time?
Well, I'm curious if there's anything else that folks, because I've heard 3 different options. One we meet, one we send a letter, and one we ask for a report. So.
Okay, so you don't have an answer to that question.
My answer is I have to go to the washroom, so it's up to the assembly to.
All right, do you guys want to take a bio break for a couple minutes?
Sure.
Sure.
So, yeah.
All right, 5-minute bio break. Thank you.
Gotta get some sort of a poll to determine where people are sitting might be the best.
To get through this by 4.
Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome back from our bio break. I'll remind directors that we are still on 9.1. The motion that is in our agenda is on the table. Further discussion. Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. I feel much better now. Thank you. There's three options that I've heard as this conversation or discussion's gone around. One, that we meet, which is the motion that's before us. The second one is that we can get a report from our staff. And the third one is that we can send a letter. My intent for this motion is that we meet, but we do it virtually. Like, I don't think we need to incur the expense and all that to go down there. Asking for a report, I think, is going to incur cost. And if our position is we don't want to accept the doc, we'd like it to be federal, then I think that'll kind of solve the problem of actually going with the report. Because if we go with a report, we can look at all the options of, taking it on and which part of the Local Government Act has a service that crosses boundaries. And sending a letter, which is the third one, I'm kind of like a little on the fence on that one because that kind of shows our position, but we still don't really know what the Lower Coast position is on it. And I think having a virtual meeting to just kind of say, hey, we'll share the information that was shared with us. Let's hear what they have to say. And then if they're going like, yeah, we feel the same way, then we can say, okay, let's direct our staff to do a joint letter that says we're opposed to it. And then if the feds, DFO continues to push and say, no, we really want a local agency, then I think we can start looking at, getting a report, kind of going down that route. But I think just a virtual meeting shouldn't be overly onerous.
Okay, so we're still recognizing the motion that is on the table and is in our agenda, and no amendments have been made to it. So further discussion on that motion. Director Elliott.
Well, I think that sending letters without any preamble, maybe not, but I mean, it would provide information that, hey, there's this issue that came up and maybe we should talk about it, but it would then be a letter of invitation. So we're still looking at talking, right? So a conversation, and whether the conversation should come before or after a report or not. And Mark's point being that, well, if we all land in the same place where we think we should be, maybe we don't need the report and that it's a waste of resources to require one. Those are all valid points. And conversation generally is a better way of trying to figure out where the other person is before putting anything in writing. And so I kind of see the value to that. Whether we want to have a motion to have that meeting or whether we just assign our chair with talking to the other side and finding out what they might like to do about it. Or like, I would say the lowest profile way to approach that conversation to initiate would probably be the best way.
Thanks, Director Elliott. Director Lennox.
Thanks. I'd like to get somewhere with this and not have it fail. That's the first part. I'm prepared to support this motion because really, if I read it again, right, we're just saying to the SCRD, we have an interest and an intention to meet with whatever, that's a letter. That's literally just reaching out and saying, and of course, the details of the letter would say at an appropriate time, probably after ABICC. I think everybody agrees we have resolutions to consider and all that. So it kind of seems like it would line up. So again, I think the intent is, unless I get it wrong, is that we reach out. How do they want to meet? Are they aware? Can we provide some information? And just that's the real intent of this. So I'm prepared to support it. But also, if the other directors aren't, I'm prepared to support a subsequent motion to get at least a letter, right? Again, good points made by other directors about information. So again, same intent, but I want to get somewhere and not have it fail.
Okay, thank you, Director Central.
As Director,
whoever he is,
yes, it does make sense that it would be a letter that would, or something, an email, whatever, that would alert their attention to the fact that we are interested, and I certainly am interested, being sort of, there's salt water in my veins too. So I definitely take an interest in what's going on in Sultry Bay. So that could stimulate the process. I think there's more agreement here actually than I felt before. a letter would elicit, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't just go into a vacuum, no doubt. It would elicit some response, and then we could take it from there. Whether it then results in a meeting or not, well, who knows? But well, I'll support this on that basis.
Okay, thank you. Further debate on the motion, Director Fall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I kind of agree. I mean, we're talking about letter now, and and meeting. The motion itself says meeting. I prefer a kind of opening salvo of a letter might make more sense. But if it's a virtual meeting, I'm not going to oppose it. But I would like to put forward a proposed amendment related to what Director Elliot had put, and I'm just going to put it in the chat. And that's just to change the language a bit so it doesn't seem like we're, it's not about the divestment. We actually want, if we were to send a letter or have a meeting, it's really about it's really temperature check. So just to be clear, if we have a meeting, it's not getting into the details. It's not how we would do it. It's really, what do you think about this? Are you aware of it? And do you want to, talk about this further? And then that might lead to asking staff to look into things. So I'm just going to put this in the
I want a second.
let's see
So you're recommending the letter be sent in advance?
He's got it.
Yeah, I got a change. Now it might be another amendment to that, but let's just try to get there. We are. So
Okay.
it's the main amendment. Oops, is this right? So it's to change the wording. Every the first part of the motion right up to discuss options and opportunities. So it would say, to discuss options and opportunity related to, rather than all the rest of it talking about the divestment. That's not mention divestment, just to say related to the request from Saltery Bay Dock Harbor Authority regarding the Saltery Bay Dock facility. So that's really, and then the letter, or that when it gets reached out, they could get the delegation material. I'll wait till it gets seconded first, and then I won't speak to it. Okay. So if I could just that they would get we would forward them the material that the Saltery Bay Harbor Authority. We're not getting ahead of ourselves of anything beyond. We've got this delegation. Here's something. If we reach out to them, presumably, our chair or one of our staff would reach out to the Sunshine Coast Regional District, and if they come back and say, "Hey, we don't want to meet right now, but we want this." If we do meet, then we could say, really, it's about advancing federal ownership. But if push comes to shove, then we need to find out service area, because it wouldn't be fair if it really got downloaded onto us. It wouldn't be really fair to our residents to have to pay for something that's used by some of their residents. So how would that work out, and what would be that process? So I think that would really just say it's just to talk about the dock and that message coming forward.
Thank you so much. And your amendment has been seconded. I wonder if we could see that, corporate officer, if you have wording that we could just take, just so we all are clear what it is that we're voting on, and discussing whether we want to amend the main motion or not.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just working on it right now, but I'll share it while I'm working on it so I can be correct. So this is the original.
Computer was turned on here.
So I believe this would be to strike out this.
After the word opportunities.
So strike out that and then insert this in its place. Is how it would read.
That's correct. Exactly.
So green is where we would replace with the red.
Okay, so that is what Director Fall has moved as the amendment. Director Gisborne is second. Okay, so is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing no hands, all in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. Okay, so the main motion as amended is on the screen. That's what we've got there.
Yep.
All right, now this has been already moved and seconded. So is there further discussion on the amended motion? Director Fall, Director.
Just very briefly, I just want to mention, the wording of this says that the board express its interest and intention. So that's actually we would be expressing our interest and intention to meet. That would leave, some leeway for our staff or our chair to reach out to Sunshine Coast Regional District, test the temperature. I think that's what we're getting to. Not do a lot more. Test the temperature. If they say no, we're too busy, fine. If they say yes, this is important, yes, and then we can go from there and carry on this, because I think it is important to keep the eye on the point here, which is we want the federal government to maintain ownership of this, but you also want to be ready to not be scrambling if something else happens and if they do download it. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Brender.
That was basically my question. And be given an opportunity to reach out to the chair down there to make them aware of the situation.
Thank you. And just throwing myself very briefly on the speakers list. These little docks are the lifeline for people in small communities. And especially when you start to think of evacuation or, weather extremes and all of that. So we have to do whatever we can, I think, to keep them open and operating and serving the people in the area that they exist. So those are only my thoughts. Director Elliott.
I like the amendment. Thank you to those who participated in that. And I like the leeway for us to approach. I want to, as other directors are in favor of having docks, it's equally important to those folks on the island across from that bay to have ways to get away from where they are for evacuation and so forth. And so we are talking about a regional need that is beyond just us. And I don't think disposing of infrastructure that is docks is in the best interest of anyone. So I think we all see that, but I like this motion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further hands, all in favor of the resolution? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. We are on to 9.2 auto aid for regional district fire services. Director Gisborne. Is this a motion or a notice of motion?
It's motion, Chair. It was a notice of motion at our last meeting.
Okay, all right.
And if somebody wants, I'll move it.
Okay, I'll second it.
Yeah, we heard at our last committee of the whole meeting, there was this issue of auto aid coming up again. And just to clarify, and please, Ryan, Toms, or I'll correct me if I'm wrong. As I understand, we have a mutual aid agreement where like the fire chief can specifically reach out if there's an incident that they need something. Whereas auto aid is automatic. It doesn't require the fire chief to, pick up the phone and get in contact. So that's kind of, I'm not seeing anyone shaking their heads and saying I'm wrong. So that's good. So when it comes to auto aid, and I had to kind of look back into the past to try and remember what had been going on. There used to be, I believe, an auto aid agreement between Malaspina and the city, and that I think came to a close. And I think one of the challenges that was showing up was there's a lot of first responder calls, medical issues, car crashes, things like that, and there became kind of this disagreement between like how much funding should say come from the Malaspina Volunteer Fire Department service to the city to kind of pay for those calls that are say going up into the Nootka area or up on Tanner. And when I'm looking at auto aid, and what I really think about is like, number one thing that my residents are concerned about when it comes to the volunteer fire department is fire. And if there's a big fire on say an August day, and then we go like, okay, well, we need to get firefighters from the city to come on out. Having an auto aid, and this also makes me think about Tla'amin Nation, is the city might go, well, hey, we're going to be down members. Who's going to help cover the city while they come out and help, say, Malaspina with a significant structure fire? And that's where, something like Northside and Tla'amin might be able to also shift a bit further south to kind of help out with the city. I'm getting ahead of myself. The motion is that the committee recommends to the board express its intent to meet with the Powell River City Council to discuss options and opportunities related to auto aid for regional district fire services. And it just keeps coming up in my mind that, might be a July day, might be an August day, things are dry, you get a big structure fire, you don't get enough folks coming out because maybe they're on holiday or whatever. And, having the fire chief having to get on the horn and then everyone having to try and couple things might lead to a big problem. And that's where I think, having an auto aid agreement, but specifically for fire, Like, let's leave all the first responder stuff to the side. We can discuss that separately, but I think fire is the big one that a lot of folks in the rural area get really concerned about, especially in the hot, dry summer. Thankfully, right now it's still raining, but of course, these decisions don't happen overnight. So I think it's a good idea to actually reach out and discuss with the city. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm wondering if we should also include the Tla'amin Nation in this discussion of auto aid, because, at the end of the day, we all don't like fire unless it's keeping us warm. But thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Director Gisborne. I've got Director Paul, Lennox, and Brander.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I see the value of auto aid, and I totally see what Director Gisborne's getting at. I guess when I was looking at this and thinking about it, it just struck me as getting a little bit operational. And so I can really support asking our staff to look into auto aid options with the city of Powell River and as well as Tla'amin. I think that would be appropriate. And maybe I'll turn that into a question, if I might, through our chair to our manager of emergency services, who I see is on the line, Mr. Toms. If that would be an appropriate, if it would be appropriate, would it be actionable if the board directed staff to look into auto aid options? What is there, what has been, and then what are the possibilities to enhance the mutual aid to include auto aid of some kind?
Okay, thanks, Director Paul. Our CAO has a comment first.
Through the chair, in response to your question, I would recommend that you wait patiently. What I mean by that is this. It's my understanding that the city fire chief has been conversing about auto aid with the Tla'amin fire chief and our fire chiefs to gather a temperature check. It's my understanding that he is preparing to take such a report to city council. It's my understanding that city council at the moment is unaware of what's going on at the ground level. So I would suggest to respectfully just wait patiently to see what evolves out of the city council as to whether or not that fire chief gets the green light to approach us formally to present a auto aid discussion. I've had conversations since that last meeting with Acting Fire Chief Ashworth, as well as Fire Chief Perot. Acting Fire Chief Ashworth is in full support of talking about auto aid, but he's also identified that there's going to take a significant amount of his time to iron out the kinks, work out the details, figure out the logistics, and come up with costs that the board needs to understand and know about. Fire Chief Perot, on the other hand, he also supports the auto aid, but at the moment he's questioning what good that would do for Northside, but he does see a stronger connection in this regard with the Tla'amin Nation Fire Department. So I think there's some things that are really detailed in the background that need to be answered when approached. And then the board will fully understand the whole big picture. But right now I'm saying my recommendation would be just wait patiently because fire chiefs are ready to talk about it, but I think we just need to have that big ask from city council and the fire chief. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I might just brief follow up, I'm happy to wait patiently. I think, we heard from our fire chiefs about the work they've been doing among the volunteer fire departments. And I think that's communications and development of policies and interactions that are coming from their perspective. And I think it sounds like that discussion isn't limited to just our volunteer fire departments. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Director Paul. Okay, I've got Director Lennox, Brander, and Elliott.
Thanks, Chair. I think sounds like this is an example of, we heard recently there was a need to get together and it's happening. So that's good news. I think waiting patiently, probably at this point, it sounds like we may not need to take action yet and be primed if nothing comes of it, but it sounds like we're about to hear about that. I think we should also just be a little careful, just because of my bias in my emergency response, that when we say auto aid, that some people means automobile aid. So automatic, if we're talking details, we should use the right language, because mutual aid also has its own details, and Mr. Tom's is well aware. And I would understand from my understanding of the system, that it would be a mutual aid agreement between whichever parties that would then identify response levels, etc. So again, that's getting a bit ahead of it. I was actually going to bring this up, is the intent to actually discuss as a C3, because my Tla'amin neighbors, everybody talks and we're neighbors. So I'm glad that's part of the discussion, and Northside and Tla'amin help each other and have for decades. So that's that part. And then really, I guess a question for Mr. Toms. I don't know if you know this, but the AMPDS dispatch system that our departments are still using, I believe, does it allow us as the QRD to select response levels as an organization, not us as directors, of course, but as an organization for our different departments according to their capabilities? Like, is it part of the, and again, that's in the details, but is it really when an incident is dispatched, those departments would be in an agreement and then be dispatched according to their capabilities? Is that how a mutual aid agreement typically is set up?
Mr. Thomas?
Through the chair, through the dispatch, we have very detailed capabilities, and both through the service levels that the board determines, and then the capabilities and what's requested, and 911 dispatch in Campbell River is able to really deliver at a detailed level, provided we ask for it. We have not at this point.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Brander.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to say that I feel this motion is getting into the operational end of things, so I was quite happy with the CAO's report that they're moving forward on it. So I don't think there's any need for this at this time. I'm happy to wait.
Okay. Thank you, Director Brander. Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I have questions to try to understand a little bit. So first of all, auto aid, mutual aid requires an agreement. Is auto aid something that everybody's required to do and does not require an agreement? So that was my first question.
Through the chair, the director's voice just trailed off a bit, but I think I heard mutual aid requires an agreement and automatic aid, does it require an agreement? They would be separate agreements. They're about assisting each other, but they are very, in operational detail, very distinct. And so they would be separate agreements. Both require agreements by the governing parties of each fire service participating.
This is a bit of a ground level, but I guess it would help me understand a ground level kind of thing. When we were doing interdepartmental type planning, and you want all the people on the ground to know what's happening in scenarios like that, do we have regional planning exercises that help us practice these support things where we are expecting folks to work together, and planning that means that they practice it? That's my question. Regionally, do we do that?
Yeah, through the chair, to varying degrees, remembering that this region has 8 fire services, 5 governing bodies over them. The neighboring departments tend to do that regularly. Northside and Tla'amin was an example already given, regularly train and practice together and share. Powell River and Malaspina is another good example. The 2 improvement districts on Texada, we understand, work regularly well together, and my understanding even already have an automatic aid agreement together. If I go back, I was on vacation when our fire chiefs attended our last meeting, but I know that they were coming from a meeting hosted by Tla'amin's fire department for our region's fire services. So again, at that regional level, they are collaborating. We're not quite at a place where maybe fire services, 2 or 3 fire services away are regularly training together. That's a logistical hurdle in our part of the world. But they are regularly working through a lot of these operational matters, and it's important.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'll put myself on the list. And Mr. Toms, my question to you is there any advantage of auto aid compared with the mutual aid agreement that we are already have, but sort of what's the difference and is there any advantage to us in going this route?
Yeah, for sure. And through the chair, just to make sure it's clear, I think it's understood, but currently there is a mutual aid agreement, the qathet Regional Fire Emergency Services Agreement, and that's for all 8 fire services here. And the 2 improvement districts, the regional district, Klamath Nation, and the city have all signed off. So we do have a mutual aid agreement whereby we could send resources from anywhere to anywhere within our region. That includes the islands and to the mainland and vice versa. Automatic aid is not request driven, it's pre-thought out. It's a lot of front load. I think the CAO's comments at the fire chiefs in conversation said it's a lot of work up front to build those agreements because it's very down to the detail of call types and what resources will be preset and given to our fire dispatch to launch automatically. And the commitment is much higher and the cost liabilities are potentially higher. And that's why it needs to be well thought out. And if we do go back to 2021, when the city was clear that it did not want to go forward with that former, much more rudimentary version of automatic aid, it was about costs. And that's why the ball is in their court. It does seem like there's an interest, but when we left off, the concern was around costs. And that's a significant liability before you sign on to an automatic aid because you are committing to those supports.
Okay, thank you. I guess having heard that information, I have to think that I kind of like the way we do it now because I worry that auto aid might end up providing or making unnecessary work when it isn't necessarily needed. It sort of needs to be up to the fire chief, I think, at any given time. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Director Southcott.
Thank you.
You've got to wrap this up.
Just a question. My understanding is that essentially, I'm not sure whether it's written or not, but when it comes to structure fires, auto aid still applies between the city and the RD, specifically in the overlap areas that were the areas of concern prior to 2021 that resulted in that change. I don't know if it's written or whether it's just in practice. I'm wondering about that.
Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, through the chair, no, sorry, Director Southcott. When the automatic aid agreement was not renewed in 2021, there's no longer any type of automatic aid between any, at least any regional district departments and the city. What the city may have done with other departments is unknown to me. So no, it's right now mutual aid only, so it's request driven. Essentially, the responding department needs to go through dispatch and request a neighboring department's assistance. That's the only way it's happening right now.
Director Gisborne, and to wrap up, please.
Thank you, Chair. One of the reasons why I bring this forward is this, I think, impacts Area B more so than any other electoral area. The Malaspina Volunteer Fire Department, in order to get to Nootka Street, has to go past the airport, down Manson and down to Westview and then up to Nootka. It takes them longer than it would take for the city to get up there for a structure fire. We have a similar issue up behind Cranberry with Tanner. And I concur with Director Southcott, having those structure fires as a priority, I think is something that we need to take a look at. In response to the process that the CIO put forward, which was, if we wait, the city's fire chief will most likely present to council. The council then may or may not, bite the apple, and then the council will direct to then come talk to us, and then they'll come talk to us, and then we can move on to those next steps. What I'm proposing is essentially the exact same thing, but in the reverse direction. Our fire chief came to us. This motion says, hey, we would like to meet with city council related to auto aid, and that goes to them. They can then talk to their fire chief and their staff. This motion just says, we express our intent to meet with the city council in relation to auto aid for regional district fire services. It's not asking for, a whole report or any of that other background information. It's essentially the process that was outlined with the city fire chief talking to city council then asks to talk to us. I'm just saying, it's a two-way street. And this is something that does affect Area D. And as we've heard with the Malaspina Volunteer Fire Department, we are low on members that are showing up to 90% of calls. The recruitment is up, that's good, but I don't want us to go into another fire season where we have low numbers. We get a fire up in Nootka, and we're talking about lives here. And this is something that I think is important. So I'm actually still in favor of the motion. It's essentially the exact same process that if we sat back, just going in the other way to say, hey, we're being proactive. We want to meet with the city about auto aid. And I believe the old auto aid agreement back before 2021 was not just structure fires, it had other aspects in it, for vehicle extraction and medical responses. But when it comes to structure fires, I'm concerned because of course we don't have hydrants out in our area, and I think it's good to strike while the iron's hot. And we had a similar request last April to meet with council about, I think, the recreation complex. It takes time until you can actually get those meetings. So even if this motion passes, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go have a meeting. It's just letting city council know that, like, hey, we're ready to meet with you. So if the fire chief then presents to city council and the city council says, yeah, we want to meet, well, we're already ready to go. So I think this motion doesn't cause any harm for us to pass. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm seeing no further hands. I'm going to call the question on this motion. All in favor of the recommendation? Okay, I'm seeing 3 hands. All opposed to this recommendation? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the recommendation is not carried. Which takes us to question period. Questions up there, Mr. Kowinski?
I'm here, Chair. I had some questions, but they've been asked and answered, so thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. We have a session, and there is a motion on our agenda. Someone would like to move. You don't need to read it. Moved and seconded by Southcott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We're going in camera.
Recording in progress.
Our meeting is adjourned. We have no rise and report. Thank you very much for doing it.
We need about 5 minutes, so 5 minutes before we can do the board meeting. So enjoy your 5-minute break.
You have a opinion going on in the community.